You will remember that everybody was talking about civil war, violence. But I was impressed with the remarkable spirit of the people. A remarkable revolution indeed. I don't think many people understand what a great revolution it was.
For 27 years, Walter Sisulu, one of the great leaders of the South African liberation struggle, was a prisoner on Robben Island.
To me, my husband was a sort of a prophet, because all he told me has happened.
There were moments when hope almost vanished. But Walter had enormous capacity to endure, and he taught us that it doesn't matter what the situation is. You must hope and be determined that you will triumph in the end.
In 1941, Walter Sisulu, then the only black estate agent in Johannesburg, met Albertina Sisulu, a trainee nurse. They were to become one of South Africa's most celebrated and enduring couples. Walter and Albertina were both from small villages just a few miles apart in the Transkei. Walter was born in Inkutobeni in 1912. The same year the ANC was formed. He attended school at All Saints Mission. His mother went to seek work in Johannesburg, and Walter and his younger sister joined her in the early 1930s. Like many new arrivals, he worked in the mines and other menial jobs and experienced for himself the indignities suffered by Africans in a country ruled by whites. In 1940, he joined the African National Congress, and the following year, a meeting was to take place that would change the history of South Africa.
I first met Walter in April 1941. He was already a leader at that time.
Walter spotted Mandela's potential at once and recruited him into the ANC. He became his guide and mentor. This was to become a lifelong friendship.
We became friends from that moment. We argued whatever we argued. Even when we were staying together, there's a lot of argument. But we never quarreled.
Walter and Nelson were militants that moved the ANC Youth League to more direct action. Their ideas helped transform the ANC into a mass movement that would mobilize for change.
So that he was already a leader, so that when it came to 1949, when they replaced the old conservative leadership, Walter was the obvious choice for Secretary General.
He remained in this position until 1954, when he was banned from political activity. Walter played a crucial role in bringing about unity in the liberation movement. As Walter became more involved in the ANC, so did Albertina. Their relationship was shaped by Walter's enlightened views on women. In 1948, the Nationalist Party came into power on a program of apartheid which denied black South Africans all rights. In such a segregated society, the Sisulu home was an island of non-racism.
This was his attitude towards all human beings, male and female. He regarded them as equals.
Influenced by the non-violence campaigns of the Indian Congress, Walter led the ANC into a nationwide defiance campaign in 1952. The Defiance campaign was the first major confrontation with the apartheid government. The ANC went on to take a historic step. Walter was at the head of a nationwide campaign to adopt a common program for a free South Africa, the Freedom Charter.
It was explained to us as kids that there would be a document that was going to be drafted by the people that would lead to freedom, simply put. And we understood that freedom meant less harassment, having the same privileges as our white counterparts.
On the 26th of June 1955, thousands of delegates from all over South Africa came together at the Congress of the People at Kliptown. Walter was unable to attend since he was now banned from political activity. He watched from a nearby rooftop as the Freedom Charter was adopted. What a moment it must have been for this great man. Years of work culminating in an enlightened document ensuring the liberators would not make the same mortal errors as the oppressors. All over the country, people's militancy was growing. The government now wanted the leaders out of the way. Walter was one of the people accused in the first treason trials.
And it was clear to the people that it was nothing else but the suppression, a brutal dictatorship of the Nationalist Party. Far from intimidating the people began to believe that now we have the leadership. Now we can look forward to advanced forms of struggle.
But the government had made a strategic mistake. During these trials, it was possible for leaders of the different cultural groups in the Liberation Front to meet, plan, and create a solidarity of opposition. By the end, all the accused had been acquitted, including Sisulu and Mandela. In March 1960, in an anti-pass law demonstration in Sharpeville, police opened fire on an unarmed crowd, killing 69 people. The government declared a state of emergency, banned the ANC and the PAC, and arrested Walter and many thousands of activists. In prison, the leadership decided that peaceful protest had come to an end. They turned to armed struggle. On December 16, 1961, Umkhonto weSizwe was formed and a campaign of sabotage began. In 1963, Walter was put under 24-hour house arrest, but he soon disappeared. The ANC had ordered him underground. Thinly disguised, he worked from a secret ANC hideout, Liliesleaf Farm in Rivonia. In a historic broadcast on Radio Freedom made June 26 that year, he assured his listeners that he had not left the country. At Liliesleaf Farm, the ANC leadership was discussing a plan to further the armed struggle. It was known as Operation Maibuye. But Rivonia was no longer safe. On July 11, 1963, police crept up on the farm. Walter and the other leaders were taken by surprise. The Rivonia trial opened in October 1963. The eyes of the world were on South Africa. Albertina worked night shifts in order to attend the trial during the day.
Walter, right from the word go, was on top of the prosecution. Yeah. You see, the prosecution had prepared their case on the basis that I was going to be accused, number one. And they didn't prepare for people like Walter. They were not aware that in spite of what the media and the public was saying about some of us, our real leader was Walter Sisulu.
Walter was absolutely brilliant. You know, he kept his cool, and there's just nothing he did wrong there. And that impressed everybody.
Walter made no impression whatsoever on Sisulu. Sisulu knocked him for 6.
Nelson Mandela was accused, with the others, of plotting sabotage to overthrow the South African government by force and revolution.
Our attitude was, we can't escape the death sentence. Let us disappear under a cloud of glory, so that those who remain behind us should know what leadership demands.
The men, when they were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, there were two main concerns among most of them: the safety of their wives and the education of their children.
When he got to jail and be arrested for 26 years, I took over education, for not only for my children, for every child that I'm able to help.
He had a great passion for education, more so for young people. He encouraged a lot of young people on the island to take up studies. And it's not surprising that he put his name to a cause like the scholarship, because that's what he always wanted to see.
Far removed from their families, Sisulu, Mandela, and 6 others began their life sentences on Robben Island off the Cape Coast.
It was our duty right from the beginning to keep ourselves informed.
A book in prison is the best friend you can ever have. We thought, phew, these people are here to stay now. Eh? They're not thinking of going to fight back. And they were right, because in prison, you have a lot of time. 1 hour is something like about a day. And you need a book, you need to study, use it. Because they said to us, you are in prison, but don't take yourself out of the struggle. Use the time to read and prepare yourself so that when you come out of prison here, you have knowledge, you understand issues, so that you can take your people, take our people into a second wave of struggle.
Decades passed. The struggle continued. At last, rumors began to circulate. There was talk of the Rivonia men being released.
We are thinking of them being released straight to Parliament, if the government is clever enough. They must go to Parliament, if they are released, to discuss the future of this country.
It was an amazing day. The whole neighborhood came out. I mean, there were thousands of people.
Walter and Albertina lived to see the end of apartheid, a dream they had helped to shape and to which they had contributed so much. Walter Sisulu died shortly before his 91st birthday in May 2003.
Go
Caring, lovable, a wonderful human being.
Whenever Mandela had a tricky problem that he couldn't solve, he always came to see Walter. You know, he had this ability to be able to deal with all kinds of problems that nobody else wanted to tackle. And if something was wrong, and especially if something was wrong in the ANC or the movement or, you know, things weren't going right politically, Walter could be very tough and a very tough negotiator.
I think people acknowledge his exceptional qualities of leadership. But at the same time, he was not as assertive as some of us.
During his lifetime, people didn't realize the importance of Sisulu. Most people did not. Because he was unobtrusive, he didn't push forward. Indeed, it was part, of course, of his success that he did not do so.
He believed in quiet diplomacy, and in that case, he had no enemies. He had only friends.
He never threatened any politician in terms of competition, which is always, of course, the ideal characteristic to have at the top. He was the kingmaker as opposed to the king.
One of the greatest gifts is to give towards education. Because if you educate just one child, you're actually educating a nation.
You don't know what's going to happen in your future. There are children who are not going to school, who are staying, they are not getting education. They will not employ you because you can't write, you can't read. I say thank you very much for what he has done for me. I feel proud of myself because I'm getting educated every day.
You know, if each businessman just educated one child, you know, we would have a whole nation of educated children who in turn would then pass on this legacy.
Education was the first thing to be attended to.
I'm a beneficiary of the Walter Sisulu Fund. And I believe that as a young South African growing up today, we need to help each other. I think Walter Sisulu would have been proud of the way the fund has helped the kids. He was a strong believer in helping others.
A great man who have changed things. You know, an organization like this is going to change everybody. Now things are happening. And the whole world can be educated. And you know, everybody can start his own business and everybody can have bread on his table, you know, because everybody is working, everybody has learned, particularly the entrepreneurship, because really you learn business, you learn how to do things for yourselves.